So event submission opens on Friday, January 13th. So I figured I would give everyone a quick overview of the event submission form, show a few changes, and give people a few tips on the event submission process so they can hopefully avoid some problems that people have had before. So I have right here an event that I've already filled out for the sake of time, and I'm going to walk through each field and let people know what they should be doing. So first, this is the field where you can enter your gaming group or company. If you are an independent GM running an event, you do not need to fill anything out. You can simply move on and leave that blank. This is your event title. You should be short and brief and specific. Further, if you are running an RPG or LARP or pretty much anything that has a plot or a module, you want to list the name of that plot or module or adventure here. You don't want to list the name of the game. Only events that are just straight up playing the game, like Magic the Gathering or Catan or something like that, should list the name of the event here. Whenever possible, list the name of what the players are doing, the special event, not the game they are playing. Next, you have a short description field. This is where you can put in a really punchy short description of what your event is supposed to be. This is a little bit shorter than we've had in the past. It's only 200 characters long, but this will go in the program book. It should be, again, very short, very descriptive. This is your chance to get players to play your game, so you should tell them why it's going to be cool. This description should also be just as useful to somebody on site as it is to somebody online, so do not include things like website addresses or email addresses or instructions to go make a character or email you or contact you for more information. All of that will be removed. Here is an optional longer description. If I had not filled this out already, you would not see it. You'd have a little option to say show a longer description. This will only show up in a digital display, and it has double the length of the old description. It's 900 characters now. You have a lot more freedom, a lot more space here. As you can see, you can go into a lot more detail and talk about exactly what the event will be. But again, this is not going to show up in the program book itself, so you shouldn't rely on it. Now down here you can choose the event type. This should be pretty straightforward. If you have any questions, you can always ask us, but this is where you choose the type of event that you are trying to run. The one that might be a little bit confusing is the Isle of Misfit events, and that's if you have something that really just doesn't fit anywhere else, you can always put it there. If you're selecting a game, like an RPG or a board game or something like that, you're going to be asked for the game system and the rules edition. You will need to fill these out. If you're submitting something that doesn't have these fields, then you don't need to worry about it. The game system should be the game. It should be Dungeons & Dragons, Magic the Gathering, Vampire the Requiem, whatever the game is. While the rules edition should be first edition, second edition, advanced edition, anniversary edition. Whenever possible, try to avoid a relative term. So try to avoid using something like current or new or old. Try to be specific. Your minimum and maximum number of players. This is where you're going to list the minimum number of players you want. If you have fewer than that players show up, then you can cancel the event. You just need to go to the event HQ and let them know that you didn't have enough players. Maximum number of players is the amount of space that we are going to set aside for you. So that's basically the max that you're going to be able to fit. Although if more players show up, you can always go to the HQ to ask for more space. Be realistic with your maximum number of players. Don't go for 99 or 999 or the sky's the limit on that. Go for what you actually reasonably expect to show up, because we do not want empty seats. Age requirement and experience required should be straightforward fields. It's worth noting that these are not system enforced. They are enforced by you at your table, so you can be flexible with them if you want. But keep in mind that this is what people use to figure out whether or not they should go play your game. Similarly, materials provided. This is where you can indicate whether somebody needs to bring something to the table. You don't need to say that people need to bring pencil or paper or dice or something like that. You can usually assume everybody has that. But if they need to bring their own deck, if they need to bring their own minis, their own characters, things like that, say materials provided no. Or if you're going to provide all that, so that you are providing the materials. Attendee registration. This is how you can control how people get tickets to your event. The default is yes, and you should probably leave that unless you have a special type of event. If you're running a tournament and somebody has to beat a previous round, or if they have to have gotten approval or something like that, Or if you're running a continuing story and you don't want people to jump into the later story, then you can choose no, they must have passed something else. Finally, if you want to run a generic ticket-only event, you can specify that here. I do not recommend that in general because that limits people's ability to plan ahead. This is usually reserved for special type of events, but you can request it. You do have to explain why. There are a couple other options like not requiring tickets or VIG only or trade day only, but those should only show up to those accounts that have access to those kinds of things. If anybody wants to run something like that, they can always contact us to request. You then need to specify your date and time. You just choose the day, choose the time, and choose the duration. The duration is how the final ticket price will be calculated. You can also specify a GM. They do need to have an account in our system. You just enter the email address of their account in our system, and they will be linked with the event when you submit it. If the email address isn't found, you'll get an error message. You can specify a message to registered players. This will be emailed to everybody when they sign up for the event. That's when the first time they'll see it. So if you have any information or any instructions that players need to follow before they get to your table, you can send it here. You can also put in an address for more information. You don't need to put in HTTP because that's right here. You can put in an email address for more information. In all of these cases, it's great to list it, but your event should not, if at all possible, require it because a lot of players simply will skip over it. If your event is a tournament, you can say yes, and then you can specify a few things here. Tournaments can get a wee bit complicated, so I'll probably have a separate video for tournaments. But a quick little rundown is this is the number of rounds that the player will go through as separate events, not necessarily the number of rounds within an event. So if you're going to have an entry round, an advancement round, a final round, that would be 3 rounds, and they would be 1, 2, 3 of those rounds. You also have to specify the amount of time someone can play before they are eliminated from the tournament. That's how we do pricing for tournaments. So if you have a 4-hour tournament, but someone can be kicked out after an hour, then we only charge them for an hour. If you have any special requests, you can indicate that here. A lot of the special requests will have a note that you need to explain in the details form down here, right there. It's a very good idea to do so. If you don't give us the details, we don't really know what you need. So, special room layout, this is really only for events that will take up a whole room, like a LARP or a workshop or a seminar. Table size, this is set, the default for this is set by the event type. If you change your event type, this field will change to the default. So if for whatever reason you choose a non-default and change your event type, this will be defaulted back. Similarly, players per table, this is determined by your maximum number of players and your event type. This will change depending on the information you fill in there. If you change your event type, this will change as well. If you need open floor space in addition to or instead of a table, just put in the dimensions, just like 10 by 10 or 6 by 6 or whatever, and we'll do what we can to find you appropriate space. If you are bringing, or if you need any kind of power, you can indicate that here. It is worth noting that if you are in the convention center, it is almost guaranteed that you will have to pay for power. It is very rare to be able to access it. If you're in the hotel, it's a little bit more flexible, but generally if you need to do something more than bring a laptop, you're probably going to have to pay for power. You can also pay for microphones. You can request AV. Again, almost all events will have to pay for these, but there are some exceptions like anime and film events. If you have any special requests that somehow don't fit in here or you need to provide more information, you can list that here. Your special request should only apply to the event that you're submitting. If you have a special request that is beyond that, that affects all of your events, like needing an HQ or needing all of your tables for all of your events set up in a special way, you should send an email to events@gencon.com with the full details of that. If there is any cost after you submit the event, this will be calculated. Finally, the last thing you can put on your event is you can add an additional fee. I've already submitted this event, so the price is already calculated. On your first time through, this and this will say that it will be calculated when you submit. You can add an additional fee. That is the amount that you will be paid per player that you turn in tickets for. We reconcile those tickets after the show. That's how we track attendance and all that. You'll then be cut a check for however many players you had. When you enter an amount, you will then be required to enter a name for the payment, an address for the payment to be sent to. We use this information, not the information listed in your account, for where to send your payment and your check. So if you move, you need to email us so we can update your event. You can't just change your account. The administrative fee here really only applies to very expensive events. If you're getting above $20 per 2 hours, then that applies. Otherwise, it's not really something you need to worry about. So once you have done all that, you can simply click submit this event, and then the event will be sent to us for review. At any time, you can always go to your EOGM dashboard to review your event. You can always check on the status there, although you should be getting email notifications whenever anything changes. Now, a number of things that you want to keep for general advice. Make sure to double check spelling and grammar. Make sure to remember how this is going to look to players, because that's the whole point of it, is to communicate to players why your event is interesting and cool. That should be your top priority. Avoid duplication of information across fields. If there's a field for something like game system, don't list the game system in the description. Don't list the game system in the title. Don't repeat it somewhere else. There's a separate field for it. You only need to list it there. Only list what is appropriate for a field. You don't need to say rules are taught in the description or in the event title, because there's a field for experience required. That indicates that you're going to teach people how to play a game, so you don't need to remind them anywhere else. A lot of the fields are not required, so if you don't have information to put in there, you can leave it blank. If you don't have a gaming group or a company, leave it blank. Don't put in your name, don't put in independent, just leave it blank. For a GM, if you don't know who the GM is going to be yet, leave it blank. Do not put yourself as the GM if you're not actually going to be running the event on site. If you're just the event organizer and somebody else is going to be running the event, but you don't know who yet, leave it blank. That's probably it for most of the really major items that apply to all events. Again, if people need any further details, I can always try to put up another video for tournaments and for other events and whatnot. The other probably trick to keep in mind is that if you're submitting a large number of events, what you can do is simply go here and click duplicate, and this will make an exact copy of the event that you just set up. And you just need to go down here, scroll down, choose a new day or new time, or change the GM or whatever other details are going to be different, and then you can submit that as a whole new event, and it will show up with all the information all set. And that's about it. Again, if anybody has any questions or any problems during the event submission process, simply email events@gencon.com and we will help you as best we can. Thank you very much, and we hope that we will see you at the show, and we hope that your events will be a success.